All right, so okay, so going back to what we were talking about planning on talking about just progression in general, right? So we have the core concepts and stuff that we wanted to talk about, but uh, you just hit me with this Reddit post.
I
So
did, yes.
yes, yes. So there's a Reddit post that just got posted a little while ago. Somebody, I guess, it was in saw the it was like playing the beta, said that there was an NDA for the closed beta, and a lot of things have changed. So a lot of the progression strategies that are out right now, they may be changed. So going through this, there's like he mentioned that every zone has been reworked. Progression is much steadier now. They have fixed pretty much every issue that he had. I mean, whatever. Pace is great. There's an insane amount of new content. He didn't play too much, but he can't speak about it. So I guess the 15th is when they're going to drop like the NDAs end and people can start dropping content. So that'll be interesting because we can actually see potentially more, more of what is to come. But also, um, yeah. So how is that even going to change progression? Is the question.
Right. So it's obviously difficult to kind of make out with what he's saying, what specific, changes there are. I think the the things that would most significantly affect progression based on the way that we would typically approach it are uh, the bossing and the significance of um, chaos volley
Yep. Chaos Volley.
and the blueprint system and uh, how easy it will be to obtain the blueprints we need to progress through the various tiers.
Right. Like different. Yeah. Exactly. Like recipe books for weapons and whatnot. Yep. Exactly. So that's what I'm wondering. So he says it smoothed it out. That's like one of my biggest gripes specifically with even honestly tier two isn't as bad because you can kind of guarantee your drop with the General Soul Reaper. It's
And there also
just
aren't a lot of tier two recipes, if I recall, that are like mandatory for late game. Um,
yeah, the only thing
there
that's
are there
actually
are a
quote
few
unquote
floors, but
yeah, the only thing that's actually like quote unquote needed to or that was a huge help is tailoring floors. Yeah,
right. Meanwhile, in tier one, of course, which we
everything
try to
matters.
escape immediately. Everything that matters in late game is in tier one,
Exactly, floors,
which
floors,
is
floors, floors.
a it's a nightmare to farm.
Yep.
So I mean that could very well shake up a progression path that we would like plan for if there are guaranteed drops or shifts in how the blueprints are actually obtained.
Right. I feel
Um,
like they probably won't change tier one like Clive dropping a blueprint. I mean, they could, I guess, but the fact I think the way you can tell they intend for you to be able to just like get the thing you need in tier one is the fact that Grayson, so like the armorer, Niklaus, and Clive all like are guaranteed to drop blueprints for armor, weapons, and a ring. Like it's just guaranteed. And the idea essentially, I would imagine their idea behind that is essentially like they don't want you just to be twiddling your thumbs gathering paper in tier one for 5 hours until you finally get the thing you need. They're just like, yeah, like this isn't the point. We just want you to kind of get an item. If you want to stick around, you can. But like, if you can just kind of come here and like farm Grayson until you get all the blueprints you need. And the idea behind why they probably didn't have it in tier two and tier three is because clearly tier one was the most developed area, tier two is the second most developed area, and tier three is the least developed area. So they didn't want to have a situation. I mean, in tier three, if you think about it, there's so many bosses that just don't matter in tier three.
yeah, that's true.
Like there's so many things that don't matter and don't make a difference to any kind of progression. Like even Falrot, who technically gives the Phantom's Veil, doesn't actually matter. Like Spectral Dust is important for making a handful of things, but you can farm Spectral Dust from Banshees in ancient villages. So like you don't actually technically have to kill them. Obviously, it speeds it up very quickly because you can now make your own. But like as opposed to dropping a blueprint for something that you're going to have to need. Like so, for instance, you can't make tier three necklaces without killing Raziel the Shepherd to get the corrupted artifact.
Right.
But you definitely can get spectral dust without making it after killing Falrod. And same thing goes for like Matka the Curse Weaver. Pointless. That is a pointless boss. She gives unstable mosquito and schematic recipe basically. Duke Balaton gives toad form, which is like neat but not needed. And then like of course Styx is whatever, but and then you go to like the other side of tier 3. Merwin the Elementalist, pointless boss. Morian Stormwind,
I've only
pointless
fought her
boss.
like twice in a run
Yeah, yeah,
ever.
same. They're pointless, completely pointless bosses. So, like, I would imagine those types of things have been totally reworked. But if you look at tier 1, like maybe I can see them maybe reworking a little bit of stuff if they really had something they wanted to add, like in terms of like bosses. But I really don't think they will. I mean, maybe, but
Well, but it also there are potential additional mechanics that could kind of
that is true.
change that as well. They talked about the marketplace, which I know that isn't really accessible until you're able to get access to human form in tier 2.
Right,
And I mean, the area, I'm not really sure based on the trailers that we've seen. It's difficult to say where that area actually is on the map, if it's located in a tier 3 zone or if it is going to be kind of in the swamps of the Gloomrot expansion area.
right.
Um,
It
and
seemed
it's yeah.
yeah. I think they're probably gonna have multiple marketplaces, but it seemed like um they were going to have. It seemed like it was in Dunley. Like from the actual video itself, it seemed like it was in Dunley Hills or Farmlands.
Right. So, and if they do have, let's say they have a market in every zone, right? Like
That
of
yeah,
course, they have the
roaming
wandering
traders. Yeah, yeah.
traders and stuff. Perhaps that's what they're relying on for Dunley and Fairbane. But if they do have marketplaces, and perhaps those marketplaces sell blueprints, that could be big. Um,
That's true.
I don't, I don't really know of a reliable way, really, to farm coin in Fairbane. Um,
So chests tend to have them, and you can technically just kill Gavin over and over again because he drops coins. I'm pretty sure, but
mm.
obviously he drops like 5 coins. Like nothing. But regardless, so yeah, one thing we were talking about too is also just, we mentioned chaos volley and how that is such a big deal in progression right now because it definitely is. Like anyone who is trying to speed run,
It's the meta, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, anyone who's trying to speed run progression right now, if you're not using chaos volley to speed run your progression, you aren't actually speed running because it's just that insane to for bossing specifically. So we mentioned we were talking about like how if they nerf are they gonna I don't know if they're gonna nerf it or what how much the gem system is going to come into play for each of these spells. Like, are they just basically gonna kind of nerf every spell ish to begin with, so that you are like kind of not like kind of forced to get gems to make the spells actually good? Because I can see them not liking the idea of Chaos Volley being the best spell in the game still,
Right.
with like
And
always.
and to me, it doesn't seem like they're going to leave the spells in the state they currently are and simply apply additional effects which would buff them in various ways. That's just
Right.
a kind of a that'd be a crazy power scale for some of these
Well,
spells.
exactly, because
Um,
if you look at the gems that they actually did, like let's see if I can find some. But if you look at the gems that the gem system that they actually posted already, even just the level 1 gem that they posted was like already good. So like it was for Shadow Bolt, I think. Let me see if I can find this. It was, let's see here. It would have been 17, I believe. Yep. So if we go to update 17, yeah, here you go. So like you look at like the malignant claw and stuff like that. Like all these, there's different like gems. Okay, so here's a tier 1 gem for Shadow Bolt, the starting ability. Like so, first like tier 1 gem for the first ability you start with makes the thing explode on hit, dealing 29% damage to anything around it, and inflicting leech on all nearby enemies. So leech is a new mechanic, which is basically if someone's inflicted with leech, you hit them and heal yourself. So
mhm.
like you start out with a thing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is that good. But then you look at like some of the other better ones. Yeah, I don't know. The tier 3 for corpse explosion, it says inflicts agony on affected target. Wait, on target affected by condemn. So I think condemn is like if you hit them with the first thing, it then gives them agony, which does 12% damage 4 times over the duration, triggers a second explosion at the same location, dealing 56% damage, and then increases the duration of the snare by zero point 0.6 seconds. So like basically, it sounds like corpse explosion with this jewel just becomes like a nuke plus DOT
It's
plus.
it's like it's almost like a miniature werewolf ult in a way.
Yeah. Where it hits and then it re-triggers and it does DOT
Yes.
and it's slowing. Like that's kind of nuts.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe they aren't going to just direct buff damage. Like from reading these, it doesn't actually. It doesn't actually seem like they're going to direct buff damage. Now I'm looking at it. So yeah. I
Well,
mean,
is it talking about, like if we're talking Shadow Bolt here with the Yearning Bauble, are we talking, is that 29% damage the vanilla,
so
and
I
then
think
the
so.
only additional effect is the leech, or?
So no, so it seems like it's still what this thing reads as it just is that the normal spell functions the way it normally functions, but in addition to whenever it lands, it then explodes, dealing an additional 29% damage in an AOE. So like let's say you have like an archer or two crossbowmen, like sitting next to each other. You hit the first one,
Mhm.
the other one takes 29% damage, and then both of them get leech. I would imagine the first one gets 29% damage as well. So it's like 200 because Shadow Bolt's 200% magic
Mhm.
damage. So it'd be like it sounds like the first guy takes 200, then both of them take 29, and then they both get leech and whoever
Right.
leech on or whatever. So I don't know,
So I
like
mean, in a way, yeah. So
that is a
I
buff.
suppose it does depend. It's difficult, obviously, to really figure out what their plans are ahead of time.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
But
uh, uh, uh,
regardless,
you know, yeah, all told, the main kind of things to watch are, how they shake up the spell system, how they shake up um, the blueprint system,
yep.
because most everything else that I can think of won't really affect progression in general, unless they somehow introduce like a gate system, like a time gate
Yeah,
or
time gate
something
system,
like
which
that,
I
which
don't think they'll
I
do.
I highly doubt. I don't
Yeah,
know why or
yeah,
how they would do that. So
yeah. I don't think they'd do that. I think they're going to have. I bet tier one is going to be pretty similar. If I had to guess, obviously I could be wrong. And then maybe tier two, they might add like I wonder if they're going to add like a go to the shop and buy a blueprint system. That would be kind of interesting because I've always wanted that. Even though
right,
I
even if it is, I mean, preferably it would be a blueprint you could choose, but even if it's a
yeah
random blueprint, it's
yeah
still
one hundred
an
percent.
additional way to unlock blueprints,
Well, see, here's the thing. Um I can clear any of these bosses in tier one with iron. It's just farming the silver that I need the merciless weapon. So if they give a merciless iron weapon of any kind other than like a crossbow, I guess. I mean, you can make it work with a crossbow, but I'd rather not. Please no. But yeah, if they give any kind of merciless iron recipe, I can still clear the entirety of tier two as it stands currently. I can clear it all with just iron axes or iron reaper. Either one of those, I can clear the entire zone. So I would imagine, and we know there's going to be new bosses in tier two, but who knows if they're going to be necessary? Who knows? Like if they're going to be required to
They could,
advance.
yeah, they could be introducing, the gems themselves, which for that matter, again, if we kind of go back to the gems here, do we know how you will be obtaining these gems? I mean,
I can read it. It says modifications. These change your spells. I want to say they've said you can find them randomly, and I think you're probably going to be able to. Here it says to acquire the gems in our current vision, there's something vampires will begin to find around the time they're killing Clive the Firestarter. In similar tiers of V Bloods, they can be dropped by standard units, V Bloods, chests, but will most often be found in the more extravagant treasure chests. So the gold
I
ones,
see.
which you can
Yeah.
identify with the eye catching gold detailing. When you loot a jewel from an area, it will be tailored to the progression level of that area. So you'll only be finding jewels you can currently use or will be able to use soon. As you progress, the number of spells you can find for jewels will increase.
That's interesting.
Or sorry, number of spells you can find jewels for will increase.
because that could potentially interest. Now, I'm wondering how they gate the jewels that you quote unquote will be able to use soon, right? Like, are they
Right,
tied to are they locked behind a certain eye level? Because if we could make a run through, Cursed Forest or Bright Haven,
right.
and just
That's
pick
actually
up
true.
pick up all these jewels. I mean, I'm assuming
Imagine,
they won't be of use, but based on the verbiage here, but
yeah, well, no, it sounds like yeah, it sounds like you can only get, it sounds like as you go up, so it says, as you progress, the number of spells you can find jewels for will increase. So it means, it sounds like you could like technically find what's it called, Crystal Lance from the Elementalist. You could find jewels for Crystal Lance in Bright Haven, but also you could find jewels for Chaos Volley. It just is random. So like,
mm,
I don't know how worth it is to try to find those, but that would be hilarious to like run into, like run through Bright Haven and some of the more safer runs and safer areas at level 1, like through the slums and whatnot, looking for in the chest spawn spots. There's a few buildings that have like high, that's where the chests spawn. If you know where they all
right.
are, you just run through those buildings looking for a gold one. Because there's in the slum zones, they have chest, like buildings with chests in them, and the patrols don't walk through them. So you could, that would be kind of funny to go in there, find a gold chest, open it, and have a tier 4 Chaos Volley gem.
I'm also curious to know
That'd be pretty
if
funny.
by chests they're also including, the bookshelves and cabinets and
That's
things like that
true.
inside the houses
That is true
as well. That'll be interesting to keep an eye on.
for sure. There's a lot to speculate on here, but what we can do. Okay, so how about we go through like general progression strats in general, just to like even ones that we could probably apply once they have like, unless they completely change the way the video game's played.
Certainly.
These things should probably still work. Like, yeah, I would imagine these actually, like the ideas still work just fine in the future version of the game. Um,
Right. Yeah.
So obviously we don't know what it's going to take to get out of tier 1. Like you said, it really is just dependent on when you can get a merciless copper weapon of some kind, like the recipe for it. Just something to
Right.
gather the materials in the next zone. That's really all it comes down to. Like if you can
Yes.
find something,
So when we talk about go mode, right? We talk
yep,
about being able to not just kill Quincy, but also farm the resources in the following area to slingshot yourself even further ahead of the pack.
right, exactly. And so like exactly, so like we've seen a lot of speed runs where people have done just like they basically kill Bear and then kill Quincy almost instantly within like 30 minutes. And they're like, cool, I can go to, I have access to iron now. But it's like, well, actually, you don't have access to iron because you don't have a merciless copper recipe. So not only do you not have a merciless copper recipe, you're also so underleveled that whenever you go to tier 2, you get hit twice and you're dead. So
And not
instead,
only that, you don't have access to, sulfur. You don't have access to
so yeah, silver, you can't farm
the
cotton, you can't farm iron, can't farm any
right.
alchemy
You can't
table.
you can't unlock recipes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You don't
yeah, yeah,
have the
yeah.
study.
You
Um,
can't make tailoring bench, smithy, all those. Like, you have those now, cool. But like, are you gonna go run around and like try to loot containers to get cotton? Because like you could technically, I guess, go to cotton farms and just like camp out in a house and wait for the containers to reset and hope they drop cotton, like in cotton yarn. Like you could technically do that, but like that's gonna take you 500 times longer than just going to kill Clive and getting a recipe and making it.
right, which is kind of that's one of the interesting concepts that I like to think about whenever we talk about progression plays specifically, because there's several different ways to play this game. I was going to say there's two, but obviously there's a bunch. But the pure speed run is not PvP viable
Oh
at
yeah,
all.
yeah, I agree, 100%.
And that's the thing. That's a lot of the speed runs you see. They're done on private servers where the speedrunner is able to control when the server starts, which in turn controls the pathing of
Yep.
integral bosses to the route.
Specifically
You know,
Lydia. Yep.
And of course, they don't have to contend with other players, which is the biggest variable in any run through the game.
100%.
Um, so there it becomes a balance between speed versus risk versus efficiency, right?
Yep.
Obviously, um, pushing yourself through progression faster than other players is not without risks. Um, but
Yeah, for
it
sure. I mean, like, so like, the one thing as a progression, from like a progression standpoint, if you're looking, let's say we're just going for progression like as fast as possible as a duo, there's like you mentioned, there's a couple ways to do that specifically. One of which is both of you go around and roam together and go for the PvP fights and steal people's stuff as you're doing it. You're unlocking things together, which is like safe but slow, but potentially you could get in a situation where you find someone who just farmed 1,000 copper and you just yoinked it all, or somebody who just it was clearing Quincy because they're ahead of you in speed, and you're like, hey dude, look, they open Quincy, and you can both roll in and gank them, and then you take Quincy and kill them, and they have to come back and do it again, and you just skipped ahead. Like there's stuff like that you can do, but then there's also the stuff that we do specifically, which is like the more risky thing. Like you said, like there's definitely more PvP focused things, and then there's like the speedrun strats that just don't like actual speedrun strats. Like I have to kill this as fast as possible, which aren't really viable in terms of progression and whatnot. Like if somebody catches you doing like if somebody builds a base or looks at bear at any time while you're doing it and decides to ruin your day, well, you are going to lose so much time, and you just gave them bear. You know what I mean? Like,
right, yeah, absolutely.
and same with Quincy.
Um, And you were talking. There are multiple ways to go through the progression, and you talked about the PvP aspect specifically, a duo roaming together to gank.
Hmm.
Yes, that can give you massive windfalls and huge bags of loot. But where are you going to put it? For
It's
one,
true. It's true. Well, that if
frankly, and
yeah,
then
well,
two. Sometimes you just get some guy who's farming blood roses for 3 hours and is
yes,
absolutely worthless. So you just wasted your time.
yep. There's that, and there's also the fact that, like you said, like, or you just don't find anyone, or they get away. Like
Right.
what happens if there
Or
are
they
what?
or worst case, they kill you,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yep.
Straight
If
up.
there's some pro who's just been
They
hitting the dojo
hitting
every
hitting the
day for a
dojo.
year. Yep.
That's right.
Literally been in the
Yeah.
dojo owning noobs for a year, and he's like, "Look at these guys. All right, what's up, bro? Eat my copper spear," and just destroys you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's very true. Yeah, so that's why the way we do it, I feel like, is probably, I don't know. It feels the better way. Obviously, on like if you're gonna try to do like a squad server, it doesn't make sense to go solo because you're just gonna get ganked by a squad and die. Like that's just
Right.
a fact. But like on a duo
Oh,
server specifically, doing it the way we do, where one person funnels resources into like to the other person before moving on themselves, that's like,
right.
yeah,
I mean, that's huge. That's so important. If we want to kind of talk a little bit about that, the idea of having a fallback, having a backup strat to you know readjust when a plan doesn't go the way you need, and having an additional person that can sit in the back lines and pump out the material, craft the gear, and farm up the loot needed to make the upgrades for the primary you know progressor, I guess you would call a person. I don't know.
yes, an Alfred for the
The
Batman.
PvEer. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
It plays a huge role, especially early on in PvP servers. People aren't necessarily looking to just gank
Yeah, it's
all
true.
the time
It's true.
because there's very little benefit early on when and on a
Yeah, for
fresh
sure.
wipe. On a fresh wipe, what are you going to get? A bunch of wood and like
Well,
maybe some copper.
and that is such a big deal too if you think about it from like a progression standpoint, specifically in tier 1. Even, I mean, honestly, any of the tiers for I guess not tier 3, but like, so tier 1, say, you and I are doing the way we do it, where I'm primarily going out bossing and you're primarily managing base stuff and getting stuff crafted, where like Basically, we do the beginning stuff. We come back to base, get the base or whatever set up, and then I'm just out, and you're in like, okay, I've crafted you a full set of Night Stalker. Oh, okay. Oh, I crafted you a copper spear. Oh, okay. And then I can literally just come back from whatever it was I was doing, like farming whetstone or whatever it may be that I know I'm going to need later on. Come back in, grab a full set, and I'm like, cool. I'm ready to go clear the entire tier one. Like I've been
Right.
out farming the whole time, and you've been doing that. And so, like, if somebody catches me out there, I mean, I guess if I'm like strictly farming, then it would be annoying. But a lot of times I'm not. A lot of times I'm actually just beating bosses. So like I'll get like Night Stalker, and then if I'm waiting on a copper spear, I'll just go kill Lydia, and then tell you, hey, I'm killing Lydia, come get it. And you're like, okay,
Right.
cool. And you'll ride down on a
Yeah.
horse and grab it. And it's like if somebody were to gank me at that time, it's like, oh man, I died whenever I was killing Lydia,
You
but
lost
I
durability. That's
lost.
it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
What did I even lose? I don't have any mats. Well, I'm not farming, so. And then the same thing goes with like any part of tier one. Tier two is where it gets a little riskier, where we split up with like, like I'm getting cotton, you're getting iron, or vice versa. Like that is
Right.
kind of where it gets a little different because we usually split that up and say like, I'll farm I'll farm iron, you farm cotton, or whatever. Maybe you
Or I'll set up the forever home, that sort of thing, which does take time to do
for
properly.
sure, yeah, for sure, it
Yeah,
does. I mean, it could take 30 minutes or more to just set up the
easy.
base.
Of
Yeah,
just basing and crafting.
there's
Yeah,
just so much farming to be done. So
but I think
really
that,
get it.
again, you going out and bossing allows the crafter to stay close to home, stay near, safety. So there's a very little risk of you losing your farm,
Right,
which in turn reduces the amount of risk you have from a huge progression setback. At that point, again, the biggest setbacks you can have is just getting ganked by a boss or getting a bad drop.
yep,
Um, but
exactly.
it but it but it also allows. I mean, playing duo, just progressing as a duo rather than solo as well, allows your partner to be very adaptive to situations. If we're hoping for a certain drop and then all of a sudden you pick something up that's we don't have the mats for, I can immediately go out and start farming for
Right.
what we
Yeah,
need.
yeah, exactly. Like if we're looking to like, oh, I want General Soul Reaper really bad, and then we get merciless copper axes or something as a recipe. And it's like, oh wait, you
Right.
need rubies for that? Okay, cool. I'm gonna run out and grab some rubies and go hit some gem veins. And like, okay, cool.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, I'm doing whatever it is I need to do. Either I'm doing the same thing, I'm getting more cotton, killing a different boss. Maybe I'm gonna go kill Christina in the meantime, or kill Leandra, the Shadow Priestess, in the meantime.
Hmm.
So I think it just, yeah, that's what makes that such a powerful thing. And then there is, what's it called? That's just tier two. Then you have to get to tier three, which thank goodness if they smooth out progression in tier three. It's just
It'll be
so
interesting to see kind of what the role is. Is Gloomrot going to be specifically a tier 4 only zone?
right.
I assume I'm assuming it should at least push, the gear score up higher.
Yeah, so it
Um,
is. It says that they said specifically that there's Gloomrot South and Gloomrot North. So they said that, which sounds very interesting to me. Let me see if I can find the map for this thing. Here we go. Yeah, so if you look at there's actually like a map here, or from the one of the blog posts or whatever, where it's like you can tell there's like a dark green and a dark brown section of Gloomrot,
yes.
and so there's
Yeah.
Gloomrot North, Gloomrot South, and I'm not sure if it's going to be. You know how in Farbane or Fairbane, it's like uh there's certain like half of the bosses on the map are just the easy ones, and then half of them are like the ones in the high 20s and 30s.
Hmm.
I wonder if it's
Right.
gonna be like that, where like, and then like Cursed Forest is basically low level tier three, and Silverlight is high level tier three.
Right.
I'm assuming it's probably going to be something similar to that, where like, I mean, maybe not, maybe it's just totally random, but I'm
Well,
wondering
it's
if it's gonna
also,
be the
I
same
mean,
way.
you might be right actually. So if we're assuming that Gloomrot is going to be like tier 4, then if like you said, if Curse Force is low tier 3, Silverlight's high tier 3, Gloomrot South could be low tier 4,
Right,
and
and
North
North could
is
be,
yeah.
yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or it could just be completely mixed, and we could just be going
Yeah.
crazy the entire time.
Or who knows? Yeah, it's just that's
Exactly.
the fun, that's the
Yep.
fun of theory crafting. It's also the difficulty of theory crafting prior
Yep.
to solid concrete information.
100%.
Um,
Yep. Definitely going to be difficult for us to totally make a have a good understanding of what to do. So hopefully on the 15th, we'll have more information and we can make like a more concrete theory crafting idea. I really want them to just drop full patch notes to give more specifics on like, hey, just so you know, here's a lot of the new changes. And so it's not like obviously it's fun to discover things and do it yourself, but I'm like
yeah, but yeah, I mean, what I'm looking for, I'm definitely looking for a map. I want to
yes,
see,
please for the love of if you can
uh,
give me a map. Give me
yeah, a map with territory locations,
if
right?
they
Because we know
give
they're updating the base system,
if
so
if they give me an interactive map, no one will see me for days. I will be looking and studying that interactive map for until like literally from the time that they drop on if they drop it on the 15th. I would be looking at that from then until the 17th, and then I'd be like, okay, I have memorized everything on this map. I would just, I love maps. I love
definitely,
these maps.
because I mean, it's really important. I mean, just for routing purposes, obviously. But if we're thinking again, the point of progression, the the journey is definitely, I think, the most consistently fun part of progression. But m- most people want to shoot for an end goal, right? And
Yes.
that means creating a castle that you can keep your soul shard safe in, and also facilitate in the long-term progression. Because I know you've talked a lot about how important it is for specific base locations to act as uh, a kind of long term, like a
Yeah.
branching out point, a hub for all of the different progression
Yep. Long term
routes.
investment to to
Yeah,
basically just make it so everything that matters. For instance, that spot in Northwest Dunley that we like so much. That one
of course.
specifically, that one's amazing. And by the way, I learned something new about that the other day when I was messing around with frog form stuff. But I'll have to tell you that later.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I mean, it's not like a huge deal, but so basically, whenever you're riding across a bridge from Silverlight into Dunley,
Yes. Yes.
so we usually, whenever we would jump down, we would like ride into the bandit camp and then take a left, or into the militia camp, take a left, and then jump down right there.
Right.
I found out yesterday because I was messing around with frog form stuff. You can actually, before you enter the gate to go into the camp, you can go to the left side and jump over the impassable terrain of the map, like
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah,
pit. You
yeah.
can jump down from there. So like you're
I
technically
can
jumping over.
see. Yes.
Yeah, you can jump from
Yeah.
there. Yeah, I learned that yesterday. I was like, that's nice. I didn't know that. So
If you
that's
don't want your horse, but yes. If you, I mean,
no,
it's
no, no.
definitely it would
You
definitely
can
be a
jump down with
cheeky
your
play,
horse.
but oh, you can.
Yeah, yeah, you can
Oh,
jump down with your horse.
that's actually huge.
Yes, it is.
Uh, okay.
Dude, there's a couple of frog form things I learned yesterday that I did not know because I was messing around. I love frog form plays. I was messing around and I learned some things that I was like, this might be crazy. Especially because there's like a strat. I don't know if they're going to change this, but there's a strat that people would do in competitive servers, like on in tournaments. I remember where people would rush frog form. Literally, that's what they like. They would literally just take horses and ride up and rush frog form together. So they would
Hmm.
get early frog form because what happens, a big play in speedrun, like progression speedrun stuff, is getting a base that you don't have to block off much of. Like it's like, oh, I can just block this little spot off and no one else can get anything. Well,
Right.
people would rush frog form and frog form raid people's bases. And yesterday I was messing around, dude. There are some spots with frog form that you could do early on that are kind of nuts. Um,
But can't
specifically,
so, can't isn't frog form just a reusable horse jump?
it is, but the problem is, um, actually, you know what? I don't actually know if it is because I think it actually might go further than horse jump.
Hmm.
If it doesn't go further than horse jump and it's just horse jump, then some of these would be okay. without it. But like, so for instance, I'll just give you one example. Where Octavian is,
Yes.
the base to the top right of him, where there's
Yes.
it's like it's like has a big plateau and then a huge big plateau on top of that. So if you on the south side of that, that's really good. You can build there so you can hear the bell ringer, right?
Right.
To the east side of that little nook, there's a river. You can frog form across that river. So
Up to the ledge.
no, no, no. If you could, that would be ridiculous. I mean, like
Yeah.
across from the down. So if you see like the south part of those little ledges where there's like two entrances that are on that little spot that are
Right.
next to the river. Obviously, I don't know how much this is even going to matter with territory system, but um, that is a spot where people would build in that little tiny little nook off
Oh,
of the
I see.
plateau.
I see. So they block off the road and then think they're
They
safe.
block off the road and they block off the road and they usually will build a little spot like they usually block off the top area, like the two little entrances up to that plateau in a way so if somebody jumps down they get trapped and they can't get back up. But and then usually they don't block off at the beginning they won't block off the riverside. But you can frog form across that river. I'm sure they've already discovered that, but that's just
That's
one thing I learned. Yeah.
that's definitely one of those plays that's like,
Holy very
definitely
huge.
definitely high risk and
Oh,
potential
well, I
high
mean,
reward,
dude,
I
I'll
guess.
show you another one I learned was in Brighthaven. Again, this is probably not really needed all that much, but it's interesting. And so another a lot of these things that I looked up was more so like I like knowing these things in the case where my back is to a wall and it's very dangerous. So let's say I know there's people in Brighthaven in the area I'm going to be, and if I ride past them, they're going to be like, "Hey, look at that guy," and they want to chase me, right? And I'm like, I can't fight these guys. They're too high of a level. I'm just trying to grind. Well, there is if you go into Brighthaven again. I don't know how needed this is would be, but it is very interesting. If you come in from the northeast entrance of Brighthaven,
Mhm.
you just ride across the bridge, right into the gates, and you hook a left behind those buildings where there's no patrols. You can frog form across that river right there too, to the south, and it
I see.
immediately drops all aggro. So you ride through the horse. People are chasing you. You hop off your horse. I'm not sure if you can horse jump it because if you can, that would be hilarious. But yeah, you can just immediately frog from that, and then you stick to the backside of all those. There's so many breakables back there. So you would get, I mean, you could get iron. You could get
There's also a
glass.
couple chests too.
Chests. Yep. There's two. I think there's two or four. I can't remember how many. Two or four chest spawns in that area, and the only things you'll see there are tier one enemies and workers.
Mhm.
There's no patrols back there. So like technically, if you wanted to, you could jump across that and have like pretty much free farm in that area, and then jump back across, get on your horse, and leave because there's no patrols in the backside there. So
Right.
yeah, so like stuff like
We
that, I was
also,
looking at.
I'm thinking actually, thinking back to the trailer, there's another pretty significant development that I haven't heard you talk about yet, and
Yeah,
that's the different kind of horse jump. The
yeah, jumping
what
over on
I
command.
think what I think is a vampire horse, and the horse is the one jumping.
Yeah, yeah. So it is the horse jumping. There are vampire horses. They said
Right.
that you can convert them. And I'm
Right.
not sure if that means like the mount gets better and can do things, which would be pretty cool. I mean that would be amazing. Yeah, if you can horse jump on command, that would be kind of ridiculous. I wonder if you could just use that and just like jump over rivers. Like,
Now, and so then it becomes a question of like, if it's only a vampire horse thing, right?
hmm
How do you get it? Obviously, you'd have to be in Gloomrot. Is
probably,
there
yeah.
a way to cheese it or rush it?
Yep, get
Doubtful,
it
but who
soon.
knows?
Yeah, who knows?
That could be incredibly useful. I mean, if they're rushing frog form, then
Yep.
why not rush horse?
Exactly. You know the spot up in Cursed Forest, northeast of Cursed Forest. That's a double base location with the bridge.
Yes. Yes.
You can frog form from the left side across the chasm into that base on two different locations.
Yes, I think I remember you showing me that
Yeah,
last
yeah,
time we
yeah.
were playing.
You can
Yes,
frog from that. So like that. If you could horse jump it too, which I don't know if you can, but that would be insane.
be huge.
The other thing also, I think that I think honestly, I think one thing that we haven't fully explored. I mean, one of the things we haven't fully explored the usefulness of that might be insane is the cave frog jump thing from tier 1 to tier 3. You know what I'm talking
Right.
about?
Yeah,
The one next to bear.
the reverse cave.
Yeah, where you can jump into the cave and like
Mhm.
the spot that you normally can't access, you can jump into it. And I'm like, that's another thing I haven't really looked at, where like maybe you can, I don't know. Again, it's like hard to tell like how would that matter, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting.
Um
Anyway,
so
this is a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
something that I don't see a lot of people talking about just in general. We talk about progression, we talk about rushing and everything, but we don't really it's not often talked about like really like what are the goals in each area? What exactly like why I want to talk about pro progression play versus, just distractions essentially, right?
Right,
Um because there there's a methodology to the game where if you're playing as in a casual way, right? Most people that I've seen, they spawn in Fairbane, they put a base down in Fairbane. It's their
yep,
permanent home unless they can't find a spot because it's all full, which, you
right.
know, unfortunate.
Yes, that happens.
And then they spend like a full 24 hours in real life farming up all of the copper, making every single merciless copper weapon that exists,
Right.
making every single special gem you can get, farming every single blueprint before they progress into tier two, right?
Yep.
Um, when in reality, the only thing you need to progress out of tier one, frankly, is a merciless copper weapon
That's right.
and
Yep.
a
100%.
way to get into Quincy.
Yep. Some way to
Um,
get into Quincy to refine iron and uh make have a tailoring bench, and then some way to get the iron that isn't. I mean, yeah.
right. And you don't. I mean, obviously, we talked about the speedrunners. We talked about how that's not a viable strategy for like public server for PvP things like that. But that doesn't mean that um, you need to you know pitch a tent and settle down, and
Immediately.
and
Yep.
and camp out for 3 years in Fairbrain. Um,
Right. I mean,
you know,
if anyone who watched my most recent run, you would have seen how even like as a solo, once I was out of tier 1, I left and did most of the stuff in tier 2. But then I would periodically go back to tier 1 to get other things when I needed them. So like, for instance, while certain things were refining, what am I going to do? Just keep going around and getting more garlic stacks to get more cotton? Am I going to keep farming iron that I don't need? Am I going to, what I mean? Like, am I going to go kill a boss that I don't necessarily need? Like, I don't really need Christina, the Sun Priestess, right then. And I wasn't really high enough level to kill her. So it's like, I mean, I could if I wanted to, but also, do I even need it? Like, does what she give me, is it even that big a deal? Like, do I need a recipe to craft glass right now? Um, Instead, I would run back to tier 1 and get the other bosses I need. Like I even skipped Grayson originally to get without
oh,
getting workshop floors, because really there's a teleporter right south of him, directly south of him. So like
right.
you just leave you leave tier 1 immediately, and whenever you have the time, you just go to the nearest teleporter, teleport south, go kill him, and then either ride back up with any mats and stuff that you actually want, or just drop him on the ground and take the teleporter back. Like,
Right. There's places, there are, let's put this, there's situations you want to find yourself in if you're pushing for fast progression. You want to be the first in tier two because
yes,
that affords you farming iron mine without having it be contested by 1,000 players at the same time.
yep,
That affords you being the first to clear all of the garlic farms and kit you out with, two of the four pieces of armor that you need. Um, it affords you space to breathe, to progress without the potential to be ganked more uh, more
exactly. Well, and
often.
the other thing too is if you're going fast enough and you get those things. Let's say you're the first in tier 2 and you're the first to get the iron and you're the first to get the cotton, and you're in a situation where you're waiting for things to refine, and maybe you're doing a little bit of farming, maybe I'm getting a little bit of wolf thread, maybe I'm going to kill Beatrice, etc., etc. and then you see someone else coming into tier 2, you can gank them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
Like
you're the gatekeeper.
you're the gatekeeper. Yeah, now you're the gatekeeper. Now you're the
You're
one
you're the
controlling the
you're the new
cotton.
Quincy.
Yeah, exactly. Like they just beat Quincy and they're rolling into town. Like, hey, cool. What do I do next? Oh, maybe I'll go gather some cotton. And you're like, hey, actually, I could still use some cotton. And then you just start killing them because you've already done your time in garlic prison. You've already worn that off. You can now just start fighting people if you want. If you want to do that, you can do that, and you're set up
Yeah.
for it. It also does stuff like this. So one of the things people didn't realize in the beginning was probably the most and maybe most or second most important POI in all of Dunley was the Church of the Damned with Leandra,
Right.
simply because Scourge Stones and stuff, but also generals, Undead
Potential for
Commander.
General Soul Reaper.
Yep,
Yeah.
potential General Soul Reaper. Glass, even though it's not on the list, there's glass in the breakables, so that's already amazing. And then you get
Hmm.
the Scourge pendant from killing her, and the recipe for making Scourge Stone. So
You
like,
can
there,
pick up Scourge Stone from the drops. You
yep,
can get Grave Dust from the mobs to
lots of bones
craft
as a
it.
grave. Yep, glass from the
Yeah.
breakables, and then Leandra is so. I basically never craft a tier 1 ring ever, other than the Blood Rose ring, which is like a not a tier 1 ring.
It's tier point 0.5.
Yeah, it's just like the upgrade for this bone ring, but then you usually make the other rings after that, like the one that takes like 9 grave
Hmm.
dust or whatever.
Right.
Um, I never do that. I just get Scourge Pendant, and the upgrade from the Blood Rose ring to the Scourge Pendant is ridiculous. It's like a huge jump. I mean, it's literally 9 levels.
Yeah.
So, um, that's a big
Well,
deal.
also, and also, I just was thinking when we're talking about pushing into tier two, then rotating back to tier one to clean up,
Hmm.
uh, that saves you time in other ways that might be obvious to some, but you might not think about. Like, just the time to kill for all of the bosses is
Yes.
significantly lower with upgrade weapons. Just
Right.
that extra, any iron weapon with the additional weapon skill
Yeah. Yeah.
is huge time save for all these bosses, right?
Fighting Niklaus with a Reaper makes the fight go from semi annoying, like annoying slash can be actually pretty difficult if you're too level, to like not even a thought. You just walk
Right.
in and kill him and leave. Like, oh, hey, this guy, let me just throw my Reaper at him a few times, and then anytime there's skeletons, you press Q because it does increased undead damage. You press Q once and then like swing a couple times, and every skeleton dies. Not that I even
Right.
really ever focus on skeletons, but you get the idea. Like, he just becomes a non-issue whenever you do that. And do you even need the study before leaving? No. Like, you
Right.
do need a study. You also,
Because and that's actually I want to focus on that a little bit because that's an important thing. People kind of freak out about that, right? But the
yeah,
truth is, to get out of tier two, even you need the General Soul Reaper,
yep,
right? Or
that's it.
you'll obviously Merciless Iron, but again, our goal, our aim, really is General Soul Reaper because that is, I mean, that pushes you into late in game
Yep,
by itself.
100%.
It's almost the strength of a. I mean, it is the strength of a silver weapon
Yeah, it is.
in tier two. You know,
Yep.
it can farm silver,
It can
which
farm
is
silver, and it gives you stats that are basically the equivalent of an actual silver weapon. So your base attack damage is going to be slightly lower, but the spell power bonus is enough to make up for it, and you're basically
yes,
using a silver weapon at that point,
right.
which is
You
hilarious.
know,
So
so and you don't and the recipe that that drops General Soul Reaper, it's not something you have to research in a research bench.
yeah,
It's you
yep.
just
You just
it's
find it.
a usable, it's consumable.
Yep, you just find it and use it, and say, "Oh,
Yeah.
cool, last run got
So
lucky."
the study is not, if you get an early merciless iron recipe and you're having difficulty, with the drops, the RNG for General Soul Reaper, yeah, maybe consider going back and
Yeah,
killing Niklaus then, but do it with the
yeah.
iron weapon that you're going to be using to upgrade.
If you have if I find merciless axes, I would drop everything I'm doing and make merciless axes because for me it's like obviously there's certain weapons you can get away with for bossing. Like I wouldn't really want to boss with a sword. I could do it. Again, I can boss with just iron. So really, I guess it's just anything. The crossbow is really the only thing that I would be like, merciless iron crossbow is just I don't care. Like that's just not something I'm going to farm with. But yeah, like you said, if you're having a hard time finding the General Soul Reaper, then you find them versus think, okay, well then cool. Now yeah, go down and kill Niklaus and come up and make the study, and now you're good. But other than that, it's like there's not really all that much in there that you actually need. Obviously, you get tailoring floors. That's a huge deal.
Right.
But
And being able to unlock the recipes for the
Merciless
tier
Hollow
2 armor
thing. Yep.
and stuff like that is important.
I will also
But
I
again,
will also say this. I will also say this. If you're on a server where you're like a 2x loot server, or your duo partner is going but absolutely out of his mind with farming and has tons of scourge stone before it's time to leave tier 2, like
I know where you're going with this.
then if you drop a level 2 necklace like the sapphire pendant, then it is, in my opinion, it is absolutely worth it to make that. So like to go to just be like, because normally I don't upgrade my scourge pendant until a corrupted artifact. Like I usually just don't care. But if
Right.
you get a sapphire pendant and you have enough scourge stone, like if you really have a good chunk of it because your duo has been farming or whatever it may be, the the amount that specifically sapphire pendant, the other ones are okay, but the sapphire pendant is so strong, it's so ridiculous that you can get away with just using that until you have a tier 3 necklace recipe, because it's just that strong, because it gives you, I
Right.
think it's like crit chance and like spell power. I can't remember what exactly it is. It's
Is it
crit.
spell cooldown too,
Let me
is
look,
it?
let me look it up. Yeah, it might be spell cooldown sapphire. Let's see. Let's look this up real quick. Oh, whoops. Just giving me the wrong thing. Sapphire pendant. Yeah, so it's, oh yeah, it's crit strike and spell power, but this is not the right. Let me see here. No, it's like this weird. What is this
Shard of the
website?
Frozen Crypt, I believe, is what you're talking
So
about,
Shard
right?
of the Frozen
Or
Crypt is
no?
the tier
Oh, that's
3
the tier
upgrade.
3. That's correct. Yeah,
Sapphire
that's what I was
pendant. Let me see if I
thinking.
can find this.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
It is
Sapphire
the
Pendant,
Sapphire pendant.
uh,
12% crit
eight-
chance. Yeah, 12% crit chance.
18.5 spell power. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 12% spell crit chance, which is a pretty substantial buff, especially if you end up getting like decent scholar blood, etc. And it's already going to give you more spell power than. So there's like three reasons, right? It gives you more spell power than the Scourge Pendant by a little bit. It gives you 12% crit chance, which is great, but it also gives you 3 gear score, which makes you, whenever you go into Cursed Forest, instead of being level 53, you're level 56, which means it actually technically buffs all of the other damage that you do to bosses. Because you're, instead of being like Angora, instead of being 7 levels lower than Angora, you're only 4 levels lower. So technically you're in an
Hmm.
upper, you increase the bracket in terms of like how much damage you're dealing. So you're going to kill her without even like, it goes from like, man, I really got to pay attention in this Angora fight, to, oh, this is not even a problem. And so the
It
same
also
thing.
lets you. It also lets you take a crack at Wilfred as well if you're
It's
feeling
true.
bold.
Yep. If you're feeling bullet, you can definitely do it. Yep. I'm
Yeah,
and
that werewolf in his heart strike, man. It's
after this most
once
recent
you
run.
get heart strike. I'm just saying,
Yeah,
once you get heart strike, you could just farm Brighthaven for free.
that's true. Yep. I mean, after this most recent run, I feel confident that I could probably kill Wilfred. After I kill Angora, I could kill Wilfred at almost any level, because I beat him last time I fought him. I beat him without getting hit.
Right.
So, well, like,
It's
and I wasn't even paying attention. I wasn't even like
and let's
trying to
yeah,
beat him without getting hit. I was just like, oh, he's doing that thing, walk away, like over and over
and
again until I beat him.
that's what I think a lot of people, obviously struggle with. It's hard to talk about that kind of thing, like beating bosses early as, oh, well, get good. It's some of the bosses are harder than others, but there are some bosses that people think are traditionally difficult that when you really pay attention to their attack pattern
Mm-hmm.
and you also equip the proper spells to counter them,
Yep.
um, are a cakewalk.
Yeah. I'm
And Wilfred is one of them. Same thing with
Octavian. It sounds crazy,
I don't
but
know.
for me,
Octavian always gives me a little bit of trouble, but using
once
your
I fig,
techniques actually
yeah.
did help a lot.
Well, for me, once I figured him out, this past run, once I really figured him out, I realized the only dangerous thing that this guy has, if you know what's going on, is his spin to win.
Yeah.
That's it. Obviously,
Uh
like the archers are annoying, but You can kind of just focus them down.
Right. And Soul Taker's another one. I know he's not, mandatory, but if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna fight him, you equip a good counter, you know,
yep,
equip a good dodge, and just make sure you memorize his attack pattern, and you can actually take him down very easy.
yep,
Just avoid the banshees. Don't try and fight him, and you know, um, he really isn't too difficult either. Um,
exactly. Yep.
yeah,
But yes, well, I would say for now that's probably a good place to stop, simply because I just cannot wait for the 15th to get more information to be able to decide what the heck is going on. But
definitely. I mean, we
yes,
could we could talk about we could talk about what truly makes Duo different than
oh, then
your
solo.
solo runs and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, we did a little bit. We touched on it.
We talked about just funneling the resources into one person and speeding up that
Right.
way. And but the
Are you
thing,
recording?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, just confirming.
you're good, you're good. Yeah, the
Yeah.
thing that specifically makes that like such a big deal is, um, like I would say the thing that really sets it apart too is having like so that both people know what is happening. Like that is a big
Yeah.
deal because
Communication and division of duty, right?
yeah, so like there's been times whenever I've been doing something and I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta go do this. Okay, let me go look for iron. Maybe I have to go fight. And then all of a sudden you say, I just got the General's Soul Reaper blueprint, and then I'm like, what? Okay, never mind. Disregard all things that just happened and continue doing. Focus on that. And the
Right.
same thing has happened in tier one. The same thing's happened in every one of these zones where it's like, oh, I just found this, and then it's like, oh man, it's game over now.
That's what makes it so fun.
It
That's
is.
that's really the magic of it is the RNG, the what's going to be in that chest. Ooh, I just saw this blueprint drop. What is it? Kind of thing. And adjusting your plan on the fly to incorporate
Yep.
the new,
The new
development.
information. Yep. Because there's
Yeah.
like, getting to a comfortable level for things, but then there's like certain things that are just like, that's enough. And I know that's enough. And if you're, looking for those kinds of situations is really cool. Um, yeah. With duos, it just becomes so interesting. Is the thing that also becomes interesting with duos as well for me is other than, focusing all the resources in one person, there's also the idea that like as how do I put this? Like, so for instance, when I'm doing stuff as a solo, I have to consider each boss and say, "Ooh, do I need to get that boss?" Like, so for instance, I'm riding by and I'm like, "Ooh, do I need Vincent right now? I don't know." And then I'm like, probably should just in case I find some good blood." And then I'll kill Vincent and I'll take Vincent. Other times I'll be like, "Oh, do I need Christina right now? Maybe." With a duo, you can just divide those things where I just don't even care about them. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go farm. Like, I'm gonna focus on, getting iron and then killing Beatrice and getting garlic or whatever it may be. Whatever. Or sorry, garlic, getting
hmm
cotton, whatever it may be.
killing the undead commander in
Undead
the iron
commander,
mine.
going after that over and over and over again, doing that. And meanwhile, you're like, the duo partner can be like, I have made the base very good and efficient. Everything is currently crafting. I'm currently making all the pieces of armor that you need and then that I need, etc. And then, oh, actually, like the progression person needs, and then the base person needs. But then also they could be like, ooh, you know what? I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna grab Vincent. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna kill Christina because I know we're gonna need those in the future. But me, like the progression person, may not necessarily like they're doing something else. They're focusing on
Right.
getting the something else.
And you don't. I mean, you don't fundamentally. You don't need those blueprints because you're not the
No,
one building the base.
because it's like right, yeah. I don't really care about having a prison or not. Like obviously, getting his spells are nice, but like I'll get that when I need the spells. Like when I need the frost dash or I need the frost shield. Okay, well then yeah, I'll go out and I'll try to find him and I'll try to get him. But
Hmm.
other than that, it just yeah, it's very interesting when it comes to that.
Yeah.
How that's what makes it so cool for me as well. It's just
Yep.
like when you need it. Same thing with like
And
on
then
on your end, you're like, I don't really care about getting Jade the Vampire Hunter. You're like, I just need to
absolutely, yeah.
I just
Please
need to
no.
yeah, I don't want to have to deal with her. I just want to have I just need primal blood essence. And I'm like, well, hey, I'll get Jade and then you can make then I'll come back and you can put the stuff in the thing to make primal blood essence. So like
Hmm.
that kind of thing. So
Yeah. And
Right.
yeah, and then I mean, eventually when we both get geared, because it does happen.
Oh, of course. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Then we're able to rotate farming runs.
Yes. Yeah,
You,
exactly. Or
you hit
or
up
just
Brighthaven, you clear Brighthaven, then I come in right behind you and clear the respawns immediately.
yeah. Or also, what you can also do is like enter Brighthaven. One person goes left, one person goes right, and you just
Absolutely.
literally just destroy in every
You
single
clean sweep
thing.
it in legitimately like 1 minute.
Yeah, you just take all the lootables, all the breakables, all the things that you need. Kill the enemies to give you gold chains. You just go in and you meet on the other side, and you're like, cool, and then you just leave. You're like,
Yep.
cool, okay, done with that. And maybe you hit up like the army, army outposts on the way back or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
But yep, also safety numbers.
Of course. When you
'Cause
hit when you reach Brighthaven levels, safety numbers is
oh,
definitely,
for sure,
you
the
know,
amount of
you can get
times
you can get a cheeky person trying to
Batformer.
sneak in there causing problems.
Yep,
Yeah.
people bat forming. You can get people coming in as duos, and if you're by yourself, you're like, uh oh. That's a thing that I didn't have to worry about as much with this most recent run. Was people were already so far ahead of me that I really didn't find all that many people in the zones I was farming. Like I would see them run
Hmm.
by, and they are just like, hey, I got places to be because they're like 20
20
levels
levels
higher.
higher.
Yeah, they don't care about me just coming into Cursed Forest.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, I'm trying to down sticks, bro." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, bye." Like that's the kind
Yeah.
of thing that's going on there. So, yeah, but yes, yeah, that's the magic of duos. I'm very excited to see how it works with Gloomrod. I have a feeling if they've smoothed that progression the way this guy is describing, I have a feeling duos is going to be that much more amazing
Yeah.
because
Because and let's talk about why duos is kind of the magic number from what we are from our experience,
I
right?
agree. I agree. Yep.
When you introduce, a
There,
third,
I
a
will say there
trios.
is. I will say there is something magic about solos too. I do love it
Yeah,
because it is
absolutely,
just
absolutely.
going in and being like, all right, bro, you and me, like that kind of thing. It's like me
Yeah,
versus this one guy. That is definitely fun. But
yeah,
duos is where it's at for me. Yeah, that's my favorite.
yeah, for sure. Trios, the farm starts, the crafting times start to kind of add up. You
Trios is
have
a
to
little
start
ridiculous.
accounting for gearing 3 people instead of two.
Yep.
You know,
And
and same
quads
and
is
same thing with
just
squads.
yep. Squads gets
Chaos.
crazy.
It's just
And the issue for me is you have to gear everyone in squads.
yes,
Like you can't get away
because
with just gearing one guy, or even
because
probably not
because
even
even
two
if you come
guys.
up against under-leveled quads, if you're by yourself or with a partner,
Oh yeah, you're dead
again
for sure.
2v4, it doesn't matter if you're 20 levels higher, you
All
will die.
all it takes is for one guy to be smart enough to stay on his horse, and you will never get away, and you will die.
Yes.
Like that's
And
literally all it takes.
if they've downed Quincy, one of them stuns you
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
all jump
chain,
on
yeah,
you, you're
instant
dead.
GG. Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
One stun, one stun, or yeah, you can chain stun it. You can have one guy do
Yep.
a stun. You can do all. I mean, you can literally just quad spear, 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 and then if you don't dash out of it at the right, there's like a couple frames you can dash out in between the spear hits. But if you like don't do it, you just die.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
GG. Yep. But yeah, that's what duos is great. And also duos, I don't feel as I feel pretty confident in a 2v1 or a 1v2. Like not
Right.
necessarily that I'm always going to
And
win.
1v2, but I mean, good positioning goes a long way in a 1v2,
Yeah, well, that and also not that I'm always going to win. I have one. Like I
Yeah.
have won
Yeah.
2v1s and we've
Absolutely.
done and we've smashed 2v2s and we've those kinds of things. But like we've played on squad servers as threes against fours and it's been us two versus random squads and it'll be like, all right, I got one. Oh man, that one downed you. Oh no big deal. Okay, I downed him and then two more people show up and it's like, oh, game
Right.
over.
Yeah.
The game is over. Bye. Okay. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, super good. We'll have to go again. We'll have to go into more specific details of progression once we get more information on it, and we can go
Yes.
into specifically like what the strats are going to be, like what we can theorycraft what we think the strats might be based on the information we have. So, but that is yeah, that was good. That's good for now. Um, yep. Hopefully everybody who's will enjoy that.
Yeah. Looking forward to the update too.